It's not.
That's why the city is filled with a bunch of fucking idiots still. That's why the first motherfucker popping some city is killed. That's why we don't call it Detroit.
In my teenage years, I was pretty edgy. Hell, still kinda am.
Relax, get comfy, grab a cup, fill it with bleach, and let's play this shit.
So like most teens that listen to too much hip-hop and Slipknot, I was very drawn to the Punisher. What's not to like? He was a badass who killed criminals in bloody fashion, and he has a skull as a logo. Come on, this dude's great. I became aware of the character like everyone else did, through the Spider-Man animated series. But I really started liking him after I saw the 2004 Thomas Jane movie, and I loved the video game that came out not long after. Being a preteen around this time and only being aware of heroes like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and Daredevil, mainly through the cartoons and movies, a character like the Punisher blew me away. It was dark and brutal and not like any of the superheroes that I was aware of, so I was really intrigued by him. Fast forward a few years later, now I'm in high school, and a new Punisher movie was announced, and it was revealed to not be a sequel to the 2004 Thomas Jane one, which I thought was a pretty decent movie, but regardless, I was very interested in seeing it. Then in December 2008, Punisher Warzone released in theaters to negative reviews and a low box office. No one really saw it, and no one really liked it. A few months later, I got it on DVD. I went in with low expectations, thanks to the reviews that I read online at the time. I really wasn't expecting much, but I ended up loving it. This movie boasts a Rotten Tomatoes score of 29% and a Metacritic score of 30. Going off these reviews, you would think this is one of the worst movies of all time, but allow me to be a contrarian and explain why I love this movie, and hopefully by the end of this video you might be able to see the movie in a new light, and maybe you'll appreciate it more too. Or not, and that's okay because I will be the first to tell you, this movie isn't for everyone, and I will admit that it lacks focus and polish in several areas, but goddammit, it pulls off other things so well and has a charm to it that keeps me entertained.
That was the fat ass nut.
Now here's a little backstory. Even though it released in 2008, this movie wasn't meant to be part of the MCU, and it wasn't made by Marvel Studios, who did Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk earlier that year. Instead, it was made by Marvel Knights along with Lionsgate. Now, Marvel Knights was a studio that was made to focus on the darker Marvel characters. Besides Warzone, they also did Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, and those are the only two live-action movies they ever made, and they've been dormant ever since. Probably because these movies weren't received well and weren't big hits at the box office. And I guess with Disney and the main Marvel Studios focusing on the MCU, they probably didn't want other characters being used, just in case they wanted to have them in the MCU later on. Now that's just speculation on my part. I have no proof, it's just a theory. But I do like the idea of having a separate studio focus on different types of characters. Probably ones that wouldn't fit into the MCU. It's kind of like the Marvel Netflix shows that came out years later. They had their own style and feel that are different from the MCU movies. Anyway, the studio set out to make the next Punisher movie, and a young up-and-coming director named Lexi Alexander was chosen to head the project. Before this, she had done one previous movie and a short film, making this her third project. And the movie she made was something special.
You're haunting.
That's enough backstory. I think it's about time we talk about this bad boy.
That was the fat ass nut.
The first thing I want to address is the look of this film. I love it. It has a very gritty and dirty look and feel to it, and the director says she wanted to have color in every scene to make them pop and stand out like a page in a comic book, and to add color to certain types of scenes. For example, red was used to convey anger and rage, and you can see this in the opening scene, and blues were used for more calmer emotional scenes. And you also see colors like green and purple throughout the movie, mainly when they're outside in the city. Orange is also used quite a bit too. The director also said they wanted to have a bunch of different colors, but to make sure they didn't go crazy, they limited themselves to using only a max of 3 colors at one time. And once you know that, it's fun looking at a scene and noticing that, yeah, they stuck to that for the most part. All in all, it makes for an interesting looking movie. I love the gritty look mixed with these different color palette combinations. Ironically, I saw a tweet recently praising this movie for its look. But what adds to this gritty, dirty neon light show is a little bit of blood and gore.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
That was the fat ass nut.
The action in this movie is pretty great. It's ultra violent, bloody, gory, and over the top. You will see people's heads and limbs get blown off as well as faces smashed in. This movie makes it clear within the first 5 minutes what you're in for.
Fuck that nigga up.
It's violent to a comical degree, and I can't help but laugh and get excited when I see Frank hanging from a chandelier, dual-wielding guns, and laying out a room full of mobsters. And that's another thing I really love too. They show the Punisher as being a very proficient killer. He lays out enemies with ease and in bloody fashion. It almost feels like a horror movie from the 80s, with the amount of gore you see, and Frank Castle is basically the killer hunting down his victims, except here his victims are criminals. So when you mix the gritty aesthetic and the bright colors with the ultra violence, it creates a very unique look and feel. But the cherry on top that ties it all together are the characters. And boy do we got some characters here.
That was the fat ass nut.
Now the cast is either great or bad depending on who you ask, but basically everyone is in agreement when it comes to Ray Stevenson as the Punisher. He has the look, the size and cold demeanor, and sometimes a dark one-liner or insult.
Never once seen a banger that could quit. Too fucking stupid.
So far as casting goes, they definitely got the right guy. But my personal favorite character is Billy the Beaut, aka Jigsaw. Dominic West is a great actor, and I love seeing him play a character like this. He's literally a comic book villain come to life, and at times he's campy as hell and feels like a Joel Schumacher villain. He has some of my favorite lines, and his delivery just drives it home.
Just like Uncle Sam, bro. We recruit in troubled neighborhoods. Offer 100 grand towards a college education they'll never get. Promise nobody ever has to go to Iraq.
What's great is that in the beginning, Billy feels like a standard mobster, but after his face gets ruined and he becomes Jigsaw, he starts to become more unstable as the movie progresses. He quickly goes from being pretty boring to pretty damn entertaining, and I can tell that Dominic West was having a blast playing this character, and in turn, I'm having fun just watching him go nuts on screen. Speaking of nuts, there's his brother, LBJ, Looney Bin Jim, a character not from the comics and is made for this movie. I find him entertaining, but in a different way. While Jigsaw comes off as funny, campy, and hilarious, LBJ is uncomfortable, and it's to the point where I can't tell if he's acting strange on purpose or not. Like, was the intended effect to make me laugh, or was this a genuine attempt at being a psychopath? Either way, at least it's some pretty entertaining scenes.
I'm gonna get my applesauce back.
I think it's funny that Frank Castle is so serious, but the villains he's facing here are so over the top and cartoony. It shouldn't work, but I think it does. They complement each other so well. Also, just about every character here talks with a thick, stereotypical, exaggerated accent, and it's amazing.
Well, it's time for me to take over anyway. Thanks to the Punisher, won't even get my fucking hands dirty. Who the fuck are these fellows?
These are a couple of my colleagues. They are very, very gifted deliverymen.
That's McGinty and his urban free flow gang. He's a mean motherfucker. He's on a constant meth high. You wanna find this guy or not?
I'm not gonna lie, not every character is good, and some of them are forgettable, but the main ones I think are great and a lot of fun, along with some of the side characters, like Micro, Soap, and Budiansky.
You Krispy Kreme motherfuckers!
So the movie has a look that I love, along with brutal over-the-top violence that's a lot of fun, and a cast of characters that are hilarious and entertaining, but I will admit, there are a list of issues that you have to look past to really enjoy this movie. And let's go over some of those now.
I bust the fat ass nut.
Even though I love the action, I think there's a bit of an issue in trying to balance it all. The movie starts with a big action set piece, and then moves to a new location for another one, and it's downright entertaining and I love it. And there's also a big action sequence for the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, but for about an hour in the middle, there isn't much action as I would like there to be. There are some small moments, but the big shootouts are in the beginning and the end, with a few smaller action scenes sprinkled in. Instead, the movie fills that hour with a story that really doesn't hit or feel as deep as it probably thinks it is. So basically, Frank killed an undercover FBI agent, and because of this, he plans to give up being the Punisher, but then Jigsaw starts going after the FBI agent's family to get his money back that he thinks the undercover agent took from him, and then Frank springs into action to protect them. I think it's a pretty decent setup with Frank contemplating quitting because he killed an FBI agent, but it doesn't really go much deeper than that, and the story really isn't well told. The dialogue is very clunky, and at times the acting comes off as very funny and laughable when it should be serious. There are a few good moments, like Frank's interactions with the little girl, but that's about it. It's also a little awkward because the movie is so ultra violent, bloody, and over the top one minute, and then we'll try to have a serious story moment the next. I don't think they mesh well at all. I think the setup is there for a very good story, but the execution isn't the best. Also, a lot of the characters aren't really well developed. Like I mentioned, I think the main cast is fine. Frank, Jigsaw, they're good. But then you have characters like Carlos that isn't really given much screen time at all. And when he dies, it's like a very emotional scene, but we have no real connection with this character because we barely know him. So that whole moment just kind of falls flat. Also, another complaint I saw is that this movie has a weird way of dealing with the passage of time. And what I mean is there are moments where days will go by in the movie, but it doesn't really feel like any time has passed at all. Like it'll just be 1 or 2 scenes later. But in the context of the movie, it's been like 3 days. It happens a few times, so it's not a big deal. But once you notice it, it does make you scratch your head and go, oh, that's a little weird. But guys, in the end, I really love this movie. But I can admit that this movie is not for everyone, and there are several things that I enjoy about it that others might look at as a negative. Like Dominic West's Jigsaw. I think he's fucking hilarious and entertaining, but others might look at him and see him as too cartoony and stupid. And even though I enjoy the action and the ultra violence, a lot of people will just see it as too gratuitous and over the top, and won't find the gore amusing. But everyone has different tastes, and I really enjoy this movie for what it is. I love the look, I love the style, and also the soundtrack is great. And of course, as always, I asked you guys, what did you think of the movie? And I saw a lot of mixed responses. Some people really enjoyed it, and some people really hated it. But there were a number of people who found it very entertaining just like me, as well as many others who thought it was just really stupid and dumb. So I want you to go ahead and leave a comment, let me know what you think about it. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, go and drop a like on it. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you next time.
How much more successful do you want me to be?
More successful.
How many records can my records break?
More records.
But I'm the best.
But are you a different animal and the same beast?
What the f does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
You're welcome.
What the f is he talking about?